6 weeks had passed since her twins vanished without a trace, and with each passing day, Emma Johnson's hope of ever seeing them again grew dimmer. Yet on one fateful day, everything changed in an instant when a homeless woman told her to check the KFC bathroom. The question of why this woman was so certain about where to look, and what horrifying truth Emma might soon uncover in the quiet isolation of those bathroom stalls, lingered in the air as Emma stepped out of the police station. Her shoulders sagged under the heavy weight of disappointment and frustration, while the bright California sun, as if mocking her despair, bathed the world in a harsh glow as she slowly made her way down the steps toward the parking lot. Her mind spun wildly, replaying the heated argument that had erupted inside the station. Then, almost as if on cue, she paused and turned, catching sight of Detective Maya Roberts hurrying after her. The detective's face was etched with concern and a trace of guilt, and she quickly apologized, saying, "I'm sorry about how things went in there. We didn't mean to dismiss your lead. It's just that we've been working on this case for over a month now, and every dead end feels like a personal failure." Though Emma understood the detective's position, her own frustration refused to dissipate. "I know you're doing your best, Detective Roberts," she replied softly, "but that man who contacted me about seeing the girls in New York sounded credible." As Detective Roberts ran a hand through her short dark hair, she explained, "I understand, Emma, but you must see it from our perspective. The reward you've put on those missing posters is attracting all sorts of opportunists looking for a quick payday." Emma's voice rose slightly as she countered, "But what if it isn't about money at all? What if Freya and Sophia were kidnapped and taken out of state? We can't simply ignore that possibility." Calmly, Detective Roberts reassured her, "We put out alerts within the first 24 hours when you reported them last month. If they'd left the state, they'd be traveling under false identities. But Emma, we must consider the fact that we might be looking too far when they could very well be still here in California." Though frustration bubbled up inside Emma because nothing had yet been found, Detective Roberts continued, "We have no trails, no evidence here. Our search must be broadened." Gently placing a comforting hand on Emma's arm, she promised, "I promise you we will look into that New York lead. We simply need to be thorough and methodical. Please trust us." With tears welling in her eyes, Emma whispered, "I'm trying, but every day feels like I'm losing hope of ever finding my girls again." And with a tender expression, Detective Roberts said, "I can't begin to imagine what you're going through, but please do not give up hope. We won't stop looking until we find them." After one last reassuring squeeze on Emma's arm, Detective Roberts returned to the station. Emma watched her go before turning and walking to her car, her mind already racing with plans for the day ahead. Settling into the driver's seat, she glanced at the stack of missing person flyers on the passenger side. Freya and Sophia's smiling faces, their matching green eyes and strawberry blonde hair, a painful reminder of what she'd lost, stared back at her. It had been 6 long weeks since her twin daughters had disappeared without a trace, and although she had taken a month off work, the task of finding her girls had come to define her life completely. For hours, Emma drove through the city, stopping at every bus station, subway entrance, restaurant, and mall exit she could find. She hung new posters, replaced those that were torn or faded, and spoke to anyone who would listen about her missing daughters. As the afternoon wore on, exhaustion began to overtake her, yet still she pressed on. When her watch indicated that the lunch rush was nearly over, she decided it was the perfect time for a much-needed coffee break. Spying a KFC nearby, Emma pulled into the parking lot. Before entering, she took a moment to hang her last few posters on the wall outside, stepped back to take one final look at the girls' faces, and with a deep, resigned sigh, pulled out her phone to check her messages. No new text had arrived, only a collection of previous false leads, trolls, scams, and even a few threatening calls filled her inbox. "Please," she whispered to herself, "let today be the day someone notices. Let this be the break we desperately need." Just as Emma pocketed her phone and reached for the KFC's door handle, something unexpected caught her eye and stopped her in her tracks. A homeless woman, appearing to be around Emma's own age, was huddled near the entrance. In that moment, A surge of compassion overwhelmed Emma. Here was another soul who had clearly lost something dear. Without a moment's hesitation, Emma reached for her wallet and withdrew a few dollar bills, then approached the woman to offer a kind gesture of help. The homeless woman's gaze shifted momentarily to the missing person posters before asking, in a hoarse yet clear tone, "Are you searching for them?" Emma's heart skipped a beat as she replied cautiously, "Yes, I am. My name is Emma Johnson, and I'm their mother. Why do you ask?" The woman's bloodshot eyes sparkled with a flicker of recognition as she said, "I've seen them before. Right here. Those blue Hello Kitty dresses. I'm most certain it was them." Emma's breath caught in her throat as she studied the woman closely, searching for any sign of impairment from drugs or alcohol. Despite her disheveled appearance and reddened eyes, the woman's steady gaze and measured movements gave Emma a glimmer of hope. In a quiet, nearly inaudible whisper, Emma asked, "When did you see them?" The homeless woman furrowed her brow in concentration and replied, "It was about a month ago, I think." That timeline resonated deeply with Emma, perfectly matching when the girls had vanished. Crouching beside the woman, careful not to crowd her, Emma inquired further, "Can you tell me more? Exactly what did you see?" The woman nodded slowly, her eyes drifting into a distant, recollective stare as she remembered the day clearly. "I remember it well because it was one of those rare days when I had saved enough money to buy a proper meal. I was standing in line at the counter when I saw them. Two little girls in matching blue Hello Kitty dresses. They were so adorable. I couldn't help but notice them." Emma's hands began to tremble as she listened intently. "Did you see who they were with?" she asked. The woman shook her head apologetically. "I'm sorry. I can't remember that part clearly. There were so many people that day, but I do recall seeing them go into the bathroom." Emma, her mind racing, repeated, "The bathroom," as her thoughts quickly aligned with the possibility of a new lead. "Yes," the woman confirmed. "I saw them go in, but I don't remember seeing them come out. I was preoccupied with ordering my food, and it was very crowded. Perhaps I simply missed them leaving." Without wasting a moment, Emma stood up abruptly, her heart pounding fiercely. She pressed the money into the woman's hand, saying in a hurried tone, "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me." Without waiting for any further reply, Emma rushed into the KFC. As soon as she stepped inside, her eyes began to scan the restaurant desperately. She headed straight for the restrooms, ignoring the curious glances of other patrons. In the women's restroom, everything initially appeared empty, so she diligently checked each stall with hope rising and falling with every push of a door. Finding nothing, Emma hesitated briefly before venturing into the men's room, ensuring at last that no one else was around, peering under the last stall. Suddenly, the door opened behind her, and she whipped around to see a janitor standing there with a look of confusion and slight alarm. "Ma'am," he asked hesitantly, "are you all right? This is the men's room." Embarrassment flushed over Emma as she stammered, "I'm so sorry. I thought I lost something in here earlier. It was my mistake." The janitor nodded, still skeptical. "Well, if you've lost something, I'd be happy to keep an eye out during my cleaning rounds." Quickly edging past him toward the door, Emma mumbled another apology and exited the men's room, her heart sinking with the realization that this lead had come up empty once again. With a heavy sigh, she decided to check the women's restroom one more time before leaving. Inside a stall, with her mind still swirling with possibilities, Emma reached for the toilet paper when something unusual caught her eye. Wedged behind the trash bin was a glint, a flash of something familiar. Her heart pounded as she pushed the bin aside and reached down carefully. Her fingers closed around a pair of glasses. Their lenses were covered in a delicate layer of dust. As she pulled them free, her breath caught in astonishment. The brown-red plastic frames were unmistakable. They were identical to the pair that her daughter Freya once wore. With trembling hands, Emma carried the glasses to the sink and gently washed away the dust. In that moment, her mind flashed back to the day when Freya's name had been lovingly carved into the temple of the frames. Turning them over, she clearly saw Freya Johnson etched into the plastic. A sob escaped Emma's lips as she clutched the glasses to her chest. The homeless woman had been telling the truth. Her daughters had, in fact, been at that very restroom. Although it was a small clue, it was the first tangible piece of evidence Emma had found in these agonizing 6 weeks. Renewed determination filled her as she straightened her shoulders and left the restroom, no longer willing to let this precious lead slip away. Emerging from a restroom with Freya's glasses clutched tightly in her hand, Emma's mind raced while she tried to process this new information and figure out her next move. Stepping into the main area of the restaurant, she nearly collided with the janitor from earlier. "Oh, excuse me," she murmured as she steadied herself. Then, an idea sparked in her mind. "Actually, sir, may I ask you something?" The janitor, leaning on his mop, nodded courteously. "Sure thing, ma'am. What can I help you with?" Holding up the glasses, Emma asked, "Did you, by any chance, see 2 little girls wearing blue Hello Kitty dresses about a month ago? One of them might have been wearing these glasses." The janitor furrowed his brow in thought and replied, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't say for sure. It might not have been during my shift, and honestly, a month is a long time to remember specific customers." Emma's heart sank a bit, but she pressed on, "What about the women's restroom? Do you ever clean there as well?" Shaking his head, the janitor explained, "No, I only handle the men's room. We have a separate cleaner for the women's facilities, but she isn't here today." "I see," Emma said, disappointment hidden behind polite gratitude. "Thank you anyway. Is there anyone else who might have been working that day? Perhaps someone at the counter?" The janitor gestured toward the front of the restaurant. "You could try asking the staff up there. They might remember something." Emma thanked him and headed to the counter. At the counter, it was quiet and there was no line of customers. The young cashier looked up as Emma approached, offering a practiced smile and greeting. "Welcome to KFC. How can I help you today?" Taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, Emma explained, "I'm not here just to order. I'm here for information about my daughters." Holding up the discovered glasses, she explained, "They belong to my daughter Freya. She and her twin sister, Sophia, have been missing for 6 weeks." The cashier's smile faded as genuine concern took over. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm afraid I don't remember seeing any twins recently," she replied in a soft tone. Emma's voice cracked slightly as she insisted. "They would have been wearing matching blue Hello Kitty dresses. It must have been about a month ago." Apologetically, the cashier shook her head. "I'm really sorry, but I don't recall seeing them. Let me ask the others, though." The cashier turned and called out to her coworkers in the kitchen. A few more employees gathered at the counter as the cashier explained the situation. Emma showed them the glasses and described the girls, but each staff member simply shook their head in turn. Just when hope was beginning to fade, the manager emerged from the back office. "What's going on out here?" he inquired, looking from his employees to Emma. "Sir," Emma said, turning to face him with quiet urgency, "my name is Emma Johnson. My twin daughters have been missing for 6 weeks, and I've just found evidence that they were here in your restaurant about a month ago." Holding up the glasses once again, she asked, "Is there any way I could check your security footage from that day?" The manager, whose name tag read Kenny Brown, frowned slightly and replied, "I'm very sorry about your daughters, Mrs. Johnson, but we can't simply give out our security footage without police confirmation." Emma nodded, understanding yet frustrated. "Of course I understand. Please, allow me to call the detective in charge of the case right now." She pulled out her phone and dialed Detective Roberts' number, silently praying she would answer. After only a few rings, Emma heard Maya's clear voice on the other end. "Detective Roberts speaking." "Maya, it's Emma Johnson," she said quickly. "I'm at the KFC on Lincoln Boulevard. I found Freya's glasses here, and I need your help to access your security footage." There was a brief pause before Maya responded. "You found her glasses, Emma? That's significant. I'll be there as soon as I can. In the meantime, can you put the manager on the phone?" Emma handed her phone over to Manager Brown, who listened intently as Detective Roberts spoke. After a few moments, he nodded and said, "Yes, of course, Detective. We will cooperate fully. I'll start retrieving the footage immediately." Manager Brown handed the phone back to Emma, who then confirmed a few more details with Detective Roberts before hanging up. Looking at Emma with a noticeably softer demeanor, Manager Brown said, "Mrs. Johnson, if you'd like to wait in my office, I'll begin retrieving the footage. The detective should be here shortly." Emma followed Manager Brown to the back office and settled into a chair. Her mind was a whirlwind of hope, fear, and anticipation as she waited for Detective Roberts to arrive, each minute stretching on as she clutched Freya's glasses, tenderly running her thumb over the engraved name. The familiar shape and weight of the frames conjured a flood of memories. Freya's excited smile when she first received them, the way she would push them up her nose when concentrating on a book, and all those times Emma had urged her not to leave them behind. A soft knock on the door jolted Emma from her reverie as Manager Brown peeked in and announced, "Mrs. Johnson, Detective Roberts is here." Emma promptly rose as Detective Roberts entered the room, her face reflecting a blend of concern and determination. Placing a comforting hand on Emma's shoulder, she gently said, "Tell me everything." And so Emma recounted her conversation with the homeless woman and the discovery of the glasses in painstaking detail, leaving nothing out. Detective Roberts listened intently, jotting notes in her small notebook. When Emma finished, the detective turned to Manager Brown and inquired, "Mr. Brown, have you located the footage from the day in question?" Manager Brown nodded and gestured to his computer. "I've pulled up the recordings from 6 weeks ago, the day the girls went missing. We'll need to review it hour by hour." "Then let's begin," Detective Roberts declared as she pulled up a chair. For the next several hours, Emma, Detective Roberts, and Manager Brown pored over the security footage, watching the constant flow of customers through the restaurant. Emma strained her eyes for any glimpse of her daughters, and just when her hope was nearly extinguished, Detective Roberts leaned forward and pointed at the screen. "Look by the back entrance." Emma's heart leapt as she saw them. Freya and Sophia, hand in hand, their blue Hello Kitty dresses unmistakable even from the grainy images. They were being led by a tall man in a hoodie whose face was obscured by the camera angle. "Oh my God," Emma whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "It's them. It's really them." They watched in stunned silence as the man led the girls directly toward the restroom, bypassing the counter without hesitation. Emma frowned, noting something odd about the girls' demeanor. They did not appear frightened at all. "It's as if they knew him," she murmured in confusion. Detective Roberts, her brow furrowed in concentration, asked, "Emma, does this man's walk look familiar to you? There's something distinctive about his gait." Emma studied the figure on the screen, the slight limp, the heaviness in his steps that tugged at fragments of her memory. I'm not sure," she admitted. "I can't think of anyone specific." Detective Roberts scribbled a note. "I'm going to have our analysts run this through our system. Sometimes a person's walk can be as identifying as a fingerprint." They continued reviewing the footage, though the camera's angle obscured much of the man's features. His face remained hidden beneath his hoodie, cap, and sunglasses, while much of the restroom area lay out of frame. After reviewing the footage multiple times, Detective Roberts sighed. "This is definitely a solid lead, Emma. We'll need to take this back to the station for further analysis." Still reeling from the sight of her daughters on the screen, Emma asked, "What about Freya's glasses? Can you use them for evidence?" "Absolutely," replied Detective Roberts, holding out an evidence bag. "We'll run tests to see if we can pick up any DNA or fingerprints aside from Freya's." With a heavy heart, Emma placed the glasses into the bag, feeling as though she were giving away a precious piece of her daughter. But she knew it was essential. As Manager Brown prepared a copy of the footage, Emma suddenly thought, "Could I get a copy too? I want to review the details myself later on." Producing a USB drive from her purse, she requested one for her own records. Manager Brown hesitated for a moment, glanced at Detective Roberts, who nodded in affirmation, and then copied the files onto Emma's drive. Soon after, Emma's phone buzzed with a text message from her husband, Daniel, reminding her of the family game night scheduled for 7 o'clock that evening and asking if she could pick up some snacks on her way home. "Love you," the text read. Emma closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. The thought of donning a brave face for Daniel's lively family was almost too much to bear. Yet, as she looked at the USB drive in her hand, she felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. At last, they had a real lead. "I'll be there," she texted back, determination strengthening in her heart. She had to keep going for Freya and Sophia, and perhaps this breakthrough would finally bring her girls home. Later that evening, as Emma exited Manager Brown's office and stepped out around 6:20, time had flown by, and she found herself cutting it close to the family game night. Though part of her longed for the solitude of home to rewatch the footage repeatedly, she knew Daniel and his family were counting on her presence. With a resigned sigh, she turned to the counter and placed her order. "I'll take 3 buckets of chicken and some large fries," she told the cashier as an afterthought, adding, "and a 3-piece combo meal with a water, please." While waiting for her order, Emma's thoughts drifted back to the homeless woman who had provided that crucial lead. A surge of gratitude mixed with a twinge of guilt filled her as she carefully balanced the food and made her way outside. Much to her relief, the homeless woman was still there, dozing against the wall of the restaurant. "Excuse me," Emma said softly, gently tapping the woman's shoulder as she crouched by her side. The woman startled awake, eyes widening in recognition. "Oh, it's you again," she said, her voice still heavy with sleep. Emma smiled warmly and, extending the combo meal with sincerity, said, "I wanted to thank you properly for your help. Because of what you told me, I found a new lead about my girls." The woman's face lit up with joy as she accepted the food. "Really? That's wonderful news. I'm so glad I could help." "I never even asked your name," she said. Emma responded, "My name is Emma Johnson, and may I know yours?" The woman replied, "I'm Maggie Miller." "That's such a beautiful name," Emma said kindly. "I was wondering, if I need to find you again, where might I look for you?" Maggie thought for a moment before answering, "I'm usually around here or near the farmer's market a few blocks over. You can't miss me. I'm the one with the cardboard sign and a charming personality." Emma chuckled softly, feeling a genuine moment of lightness for the first time in weeks. "Maggie, I promise you this. When I find my daughters, I'll come back here to let you know. You have given me hope when I needed it most." With tears welling in her eyes, Maggie said, "I'll be praying for you and your girls, Emma. I hope you find them soon." After a heartfelt farewell, Emma made her way back to her car. Settling into the driver's seat once more, she took a deep, steadying breath as the events of the day swirled in her mind. The disappointments at the police station, the unexpected lead from Maggie, and that heart-stopping moment when she saw her daughters on the security footage. Needing a sugar boost for the long evening ahead, she took a long swig from her soda before pulling out of the parking lot. Determination renewed. The police now possessed the vital footage, and with any luck, they would soon be able to identify the mysterious man by his distinctive walk. Even though it was not much compared to what they had earlier that morning, it was more than they had before. As evening traffic piled up, and Emma found herself crawling through a sea of cars leaving work for the day, she texted Daniel an apology for being late and blamed the traffic for her delay. As she inched along the freeway, her thoughts kept drifting back to the USB drive in her purse. She longed to rewatch the footage and scrutinize every frame for any overlooked clue. By the time she finally pulled into her driveway, several cars had already parked along the street, and she could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and conversation emanating from inside the house. Taking a deep breath, she gathered the food and steeled herself for the onslaught of Daniel's lively family. When she opened the front door, the noise hit her like a tidal wave. Daniel's brothers were crowded around the coffee table, engrossed in an intense board game. Daniel's mother, Laura Thompson, was in the kitchen with his sister-in-law, laying out plates and napkins, and the children were sprawled in front of the TV, their controllers clutched tightly as they battled in a video game. "I'm home," Emma called out, her voice trying to inject cheer. "Sorry I'm late. I brought chicken." A chorus of greetings and thanks met her as she walked to the dining room table with the food. Noticing Daniel still absorbed in the board game with his brothers, a part of her wanted to pull him aside immediately to share the day's developments. However, seeing the relaxed happiness on his face, she hesitated. Instead, she approached him and gently touched his shoulder. "Hey, I'm back," she said softly. Daniel looked up, his face breaking into a warm smile as he asked, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" The simple question nearly broke Emma's composure. How could she possibly condense the emotional roller coaster of the day's events? Yet, looking into Daniel's eyes filled with love and concern, she knew she couldn't hide the truth from him. In a low, trembling voice, she confided, "Something happened today. Detective Roberts and I found some new evidence." Immediately, Daniel's carefree expression gave way to intense focus. He turned to his younger brother, Kevin, saying, "I'm going to sit this round out. You guys keep playing." As Daniel stood, the rest of the family seemed to sense the change in atmosphere, and curious gazes followed Emma and Daniel as they made their way upstairs to their bedroom to find a moment of privacy amidst the chaos of game night. Once inside, with the cacophony of the family gathering fading into a gentle murmur, Emma's heart pounded fiercely as her mind raced to gather her thoughts. Daniel closed the door and turned to her, his expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Emma, what's going on? What evidence did you find?" he asked softly. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Emma reached in her purse and pulled out the USB drive, holding it up so Daniel could see clearly. "I found Freya's glasses at a KFC today, the one on Lincoln Boulevard, and we even secured security footage of the girls from the day they disappeared." Daniel's eyes widened in shock as he asked, "How did you manage to find this?" Emma quickly recounted her conversation with Maggie, the homeless woman, and detailed the subsequent discovery of the glasses in the restroom. Moving over to their computer, she inserted the USB drive and pulled up the footage. Daniel leaned in close, his breath catching as the video began to play. Emma pointed to the screen, her finger trembling with both hope and trepidation. "There, by the back entrance. Do you see them?" A choked sob escaped Daniel as he saw his daughters on the screen, their blue Hello Kitty dresses unmistakable even in the grainy image. "Oh my God," he whispered, "it's really them." They watched in intense, stunned silence as the mysterious man led the girls toward the restroom. Daniel's brow furrowed with anger and fear as he asked, "Who is that man, and why do the girls seem so calm with him?" Emma shook her head. "We don't know. The man's face is hidden." Detective Roberts, who was still with them, interjected, "Notice how he's limping slightly. That distinctive walk might be our only clue." Daniel leaned in closer, studying the figure on the screen. "He's a big guy, but I can't think of anyone we know who matches that description." At that moment, Emma's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Detective Roberts. Quickly answering, she asked, "Did you find something?" Daniel watched anxiously as Emma's face fell a little with each passing second until she finally hung up, her expression defeated. "They couldn't identify him from his walk," she murmured softly. "There are too many with similar gaits in the database, and his face is too obscure by his hoodie and sunglasses for facial recognition." Overwhelmed by emotion, Daniel pulled Emma into a tight embrace. "Hey, it's okay," he whispered, stroking her hair. "This is still more than we had this morning. The police now know where the girls were last seen. That's huge." Emma nodded, drawing strength from his warm embrace. After a brief moment, Detective Roberts added, "They're going to canvass the area around the KFC to see if anyone remembers anything suspicious that day." Daniel squeezed her hand reassuringly. "That's good. Someone must have seen something. We have to keep pushing, keep hoping." A small smile broke through Emma's sadness, and she replied, "You're right. We cannot give up now." For a few moments, they stood quietly together, drawing comfort from one another's presence. Then reluctantly, Daniel glanced toward the bedroom door and said, "We should probably head back downstairs. Our family will be wondering where we disappeared to." Emma nodded, taking a deep breath to compose herself as they made their way back downstairs hand in hand, bracing for the inevitable family interaction. When they finally reached the living room, Daniel's mother, Laura Thompson, immediately noticed their somber expressions. Excusing herself from her conversation, she approached them with concern etched on her face and asked softly, "Is everything all right?" Leading them to a quieter corner of the room, Daniel and Emma exchanged a brief look before Daniel spoke in a hushed tone. "Mom, we've had a development in the case. I found some new evidence today." Laura's eyes widened in shock, and she clasped Emma's hand tightly. "Oh, sweetheart, What did you find? Emma recounted the day's events in full detail, and as she spoke, she could see the mix of hope and anguish reflected on Laura's face. When Emma had finished, Laura pulled both her and Daniel into a fierce hug and said, "My brave, strong children, you've been through so much. I've been thinking that maybe it's time we hired a private investigator, someone who might be able to move faster and dig deeper than the police can." Daniel began to protest, but Laura gently held up her hand. "Our family business has been doing exceptionally well these past few months. Let me do this for you, for the girls." At that moment, a spark of hope ignited between them all, just as Daniel's older brother, Dylan Anderson, approached the group with a light tone. "Hey, what's with all these serious faces? How are the searches for my favorite nieces going?" Emma felt a pang in her chest at the mention of the girls. Dylan had always been affectionate toward Freya and Sophia, showering them with gifts and attention at every family gathering, and she knew he must be missing them terribly too. In that instant, without hesitation, Emma said, "Actually, Dylan, I was wondering if you could help us. We're trying to get the word out about the girls as much as possible. Could you share their photos on your social media? You have a great following." Dylan's face lit up. "Of course, anything I could do, I'll post about them immediately and urge my followers to spread the word." As Dylan pulled out his phone to make the post, Emma felt even a small sense of accomplishment. Every little bit helped, and perhaps someone in Dylan's network would recognize her daughters. The family game night continued around them, the laughter and chatter forming a stark contrast to the heavy conversation in their quiet corner. As Emma looked around at the faces of her extended family, all eager to help, she felt a renewed determination. They would find Freya and Sophia. They had to, and with the support of family and this promising new lead, they were one step closer to bringing their girls home. As the evening wore on and guests began to depart, Emma found herself standing on the porch, bidding farewell to the last of Daniel's relatives. Dylan, Daniel's older brother, was the final one to leave. When he hugged Emma goodbye, she couldn't help but notice something peculiar about the way he moved, slowly descending the porch steps with a slight limp favoring his left leg, a subtle movement that, in Emma's heightened state of awareness, stood out like a beacon. She watched her heart race. It reminded her vividly of the man on the security footage leading her daughters. Had it been merely a coincidence, or was there something more to be uncovered? As Dylan's car pulled away, Emma turned to Daniel, who was tidying up in the living room, and asked casually, "Did you notice Dylan limping just now?" Daniel looked up from the board game he was packing away and replied, "Oh yeah, he took a bad fall playing soccer last month and messed up his knee and ankle pretty badly." A chill ran down Emma's spine as memories of that time, when the girls went missing and when they were last seen at KFC with a limping man, suddenly converged. Though she tried to push away the thought, the seed of suspicion had been planted, and Emma knew she needed to rewatch the footage to compare Dylan's walk to that of the man in the video. Determined, she told Daniel, "I'm going upstairs to review the footage once more before bed." Daniel nodded with concern. "Okay, honey, don't stay up too late. We both need our rest." Emma kissed him on the cheek and made her way upstairs to their bedroom. Booting up the computer and inserting the USB drive, she began watching the video again, scrutinizing every movement of the man as he led the girls into the KFC. The more she watched, the more she noticed the similarities between the man's gait and Dylan's limp. The heaviness in his left step, the slight drag of his foot, it was all eerily similar. Emma's mind whirled with possibilities. Could Dylan really be involved? But why would he, if he had always been so kind to the girls, so attentive, even joking that Freya and Sophia were the daughters he never had? Torn between love and suspicion, she thought about telling Daniel her doubts, but hesitated. The siblings had always had a complicated relationship with unspoken tension. If she was wrong, it could irreparably damage their family bonds. Determined to be absolutely certain, Emma spent the next hour rewatching the footage, making detailed notes and recalling every interaction she had had with Dylan over the past weeks. Had there been any warning signs she had overlooked? Nearing midnight, when Daniel finally came to bed, Emma quickly closed the video and shut down the computer, not wanting to worry him with her suspicions. Yet as they lay in bed, Daniel's steady breathing beside her, her mind continued to race. She thought about the way Dylan had always showered the girls with gifts, his frequent offers to babysit, and his sudden appearances at their home. What once had seemed sweet now felt tainted, the pieces not fitting together as they once did. She replayed every memory in her head, Dylan's lingering glances, his overly generous offers, and finally resolved that she needed to see Dylan's reaction face to know for certain if her suspicions held any merit. Careful not to wake Daniel, Emma slipped out of bed early the next morning, leaving a brief note explaining she was off to follow up on a promising lead. Although the note was not entirely forthright about her suspicions, the weight of her secret filled her with guilt. The morning traffic was light as she drove to Dylan's house, a place she had visited countless times during family gatherings, but that morning the familiar street felt strangely alien and foreboding. Something about Dylan's car parked on the street, instead of in the garage, struck her as odd in her heightened state of awareness. After parking behind his car, she took a deep breath to steady herself, and, just as she was about to step out, saw Dylan emerge from the garage. True to his recent appearance, he was limping slightly, just as she had noticed the previous night. Forcing a smile, Emma greeted him. "Good morning, Dylan." He looked startled to see her and asked, "Emma, what are you doing here so early?" She replied, "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. I wanted to thank you again for sharing the girls' photos on your social media." His face relaxed slightly, though Emma noticed a brief flicker of nervousness in his eyes. "Of course," he said. "Anything for my favorite nieces. Would you like to come in?" Emma nodded and followed him inside. Noticing he guided her in through the front door while he slipped in through the garage, she casually asked, "Is everything all right with your garage?" Dylan hesitated for a split second before answering, "Oh yeah, I just have some stuff piled up in there. It's easier for me to get in through the front door right now, that's all." Once inside, Emma settled on the couch while Dylan went to the kitchen to make coffee. Taking the opportunity to glance around the living room, her eyes fell on a black hoodie and a cap draped over a chair, a set that looked strikingly similar to the one worn by the mysterious man in the security footage. When Dylan returned with 2 mugs of coffee, handing one to Emma, she decided to confront him directly. "Dylan, I wanted to ask you something important. Do you remember where you were on the day the girls disappeared?" The mug in Dylan's hand trembled slightly, and with coffee nearly spilling over, he stammered, I was at the soccer club, wasn't I? That's where I hurt my knee." Emma's heart raced as she pressed. "The soccer club? Are you sure? Because we found security footage of the girls at a KFC that day, and the man with them had a limp very similar to yours." Dylan's face paled visibly as he set his mug down, his hands shaking. "Emma, what are you saying? I would never hurt the girls," he insisted. But Emma's suspicions grew stronger by the second. Moving steadily toward the garage door, she demanded in a firm voice, "Then why are you acting so strange, Dylan? Why can't you give me a straight answer? What is really in your garage? Why do you keep going in and out through there?" His reaction was immediate and terrifying. Dylan lunged for a nearby cabinet, yanking open a drawer and pulling out a gun. In that split second, Emma froze. Her blood turned to ice as Dylan pointed the weapon at her, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't move. You shouldn't have come here, Emma. You shouldn't have asked these questions." Raising her hand slowly, Emma pleaded, "Dylan, please, whatever is going on, we can figure out together. Just tell me where the girls are. I know you must have your reasons." His face contorted with a mix of fear, anger, and what looked almost like remorse. "They're fine," he said coldly. "They're safe. But if you don't stay quiet, if you don't do exactly as I say, things might change." Emma, her heart pounding as if it might burst from her chest, nodded silently. Dylan then motioned with the gun for her to approach the garage door as he reached to open it. In that moment, as Emma's mind raced through possible escape plans, the unthinkable occurred. The door burst open from the other side to reveal Daniel wielding a shovel in one swift, decisive motion. Before Emma could fully register what was happening, Daniel swung the tool, connecting with the back of Dylan's head. Dylan crumpled immediately as the gun clattered across the floor. Emma stood in shock, her eyes darting between her now unconscious brother-in-law and her husband, Daniel. "Al, how did you know?" she gasped. Daniel, dropping the shovel, rushed to embrace her. "I saw your note, and something fell off. I checked the security footage and saw how you reacted to Dylan's limp last night. I put it all together and came as fast as I could." As Daniel held her tightly, Emma's legs buckled from the adrenaline rush, and both of them sank to the floor, trembling. Daniel's voice was firm. "They're here. They're safe." Quickly, he pulled out his phone to dial 911 while Emma, with shaking hands, crawled toward the garage door. There, huddled on a pair of mattresses in the corner, were Freya and Sophia, scared and confused, yet alive and unharmed. In a choked voice, little Freya managed to say, "Mommy." Overwhelmed with relief, Emma sobbed while gathering her daughters into her arms and whispered, "It's okay, babies. Mommy's here. You're safe now." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance as Daniel joined them, wrapping his arms around the family. Tears streamed down his face as he looked ahead to the long, difficult road that lay before them. A road filled with questions, trauma to process, and a family forever changed by betrayal. Yet in that precious moment, reunited at last, Emma felt a glimmer of hope. They were together again, and together they could face whatever came next. In the following hours, the scene became a whirlwind of police sirens, paramedics checking on the girls, and a flurry of questions from Detective Roberts and her team. Detective Roberts quickly took charge, directing officers to secure the area and ordering paramedics to check on Freya and Sophia. Meanwhile, Dylan, who had remained unconscious since Daniel's decisive blow with the shovel, began to stir as the officers moved in to restrain him. His eyes fluttered open and locked onto Daniel's face, and as the fog of confusion cleared, a burning rage took over. "You always have to ruin everything," Dylan spat, struggling against the officers. "Always getting the best of everything, as if you were the first child. But I was here first. I deserve more." Daniel, his face a mask of pain and anger, stepped closer and said, "Dylan, you've poisoned this family. We've all tried to make room for your wants and needs, but it's never enough. From now on, you're not my brother, and you're not part of this family. I'll make sure you rot behind bars for what you did to my girls." Overwhelmed by his fury, Dylan's face twisted with hatred as he spat directly at Daniel. The officers quickly pulled him back, securing him tightly and escorting him into a waiting patrol car. Emma watched the harrowing exchange with a mixture of horror and relief. The man she once believed she knew had been replaced by an angry, spiteful stranger who, at long last, could no longer hurt her family. Emma then turned to where Freya and Sophia were being carefully examined by the paramedics, and Daniel immediately went to join them. The girls clung to each other, their wide, fearful eyes only gradually relaxing when they saw either Emma or Daniel in their line of sight. Shortly afterward, Detective Roberts approached Emma, her face soft with concern yet determined. "Emma," she said gently, "I know this is difficult, but we need to ask the girls some questions about what happened. Will you be there with them?" Emma, her throat tight with emotion, nodded, "Of course, whatever they need." As they made their way toward where the girls were seated, Emma noticed Dylan being pushed into the back of a police car. In that brief, charged moment, his eyes met hers, filled with a mixture of shame and defiance. Emma quickly looked away, focusing intently on her daughters. Detective Roberts crouched before Freya and Sophia, speaking in a gentle tone. "Hi, girls. I'm Detective Meyer. Can you tell me what happened on the day your Uncle Dylan took you to KFC?" Freya, usually the more talkative of the two, spoke first. "Uncle Dylan said he was our new daddy now because Mommy and Daddy were busy on a long business trip." Emma's heart shattered at the sound of those words, and though she longed to interrupt and reassure them that it wasn't true, she knew she had to let them speak freely. Sophia, her voice trembling like a mere whisper, added, "He came to our house that afternoon and asked if we wanted to go to KFC with him. We said yes, but we never went home. He took us to different places. It was all very scary." Detective Roberts nodded encouragingly. "You're both being very brave. Can you tell me more about the places you stayed?" The girls described a series of motels and abandoned buildings where they were forced to wander, explaining how they never stayed in one place for too long. They spoke of cold, hard floors, meager meals, and Dylan's increasingly erratic behavior. He was different, not like the uncle we knew, Freya said, her lower lip trembling. He was mean sometimes and came too close to us. It made us uncomfortable. Emma felt a wave of nausea at the implications of Freya's words. She exchanged a worried glance with Daniel, who looked equally distressed. Detective Roberts then turned to Emma and Daniel and said, "We'll need to conduct a more thorough interview later, but this is a good start. We'll also have the girls examined at the hospital, just to be safe." As the detective left to confer with her team, Daniel pulled Emma aside. "There's something I need to tell you," he said in a low, pained voice. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Emma looked at him with dread settling in her stomach. "What is it?" she asked softly. Daniel took a deep breath. "Dylan is not my biological brother. Our parents, who couldn't have children for years, ended up adopting Dylan. Then, a few months later, my mother got pregnant with me." Emma's mind reeled at this revelation. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" she demanded, stunned. Daniel explained softly, "My parents always treated him as their own. They never wanted him to feel different. But Dylan always felt like an outsider, jealous of the bond one shared with our parents, especially after our younger brother Kevin was born." Emma remembered the undercurrent of tension between the brothers that she had long sensed but never understood. But why would he do this? Why take the girls? Daniel's face darkened as he continued. "Years ago, Dylan was involved in some very bad things. He hurt someone, a coworker who received a promotion over him, and our parents covered up using their influence to keep him out of jail. That's why our mother never allowed him any real power in the family business. She was afraid of what he might do." His voice broke as he added, "I always thought he had changed, but now—" His words trailed off, choked by regret and sorrow. Their conversation was interrupted when Laura Thompson, with tears streaming down her face, rushed toward them. "Oh, my darlings," she cried, pulling Emma and Daniel into a tight embrace. "I just heard the latest from the other girls. Are you all right?" Emma assured her softly that Freya and Sophia were safe, though inwardly she seethed with anger at the thought of how much pain might have been avoided had the family been honest about Dylan's troubled past. Detective Roberts returned once more, her tone grave as she reported, "We found some disturbing evidence in Dylan's room. A fake passport for the girls along with plane tickets to a non-extradition country. It appears he was planning to disappear with them." The impact of this revelation struck Emma like a physical blow. If they hadn't found the girls today, we might have lost them forever, she thought miserably. "We'll all need to come down to the station, and formal statements must be taken from everyone." As they prepared to leave for the police station, Emma looked at her family, her traumatized daughters, guilt-ridden husband Daniel, and devastated mother-in-law Laura, and silently vowed that although the road to healing would be long and difficult for now, being together was enough. Clutching Freya and Sophia close, Emma whispered tenderly, "It's okay, my loves. We're going home soon. We're all going home." At the police station, the atmosphere was chaotic yet determined. Emma, Daniel, Laura, and the girls were led into separate interview rooms. Emma's heart broke anew as she watched Freya and Sophia being gently guided away by a child psychologist. The twins clung to each other, their eyes wide with fear and uncertainty, only gradually relaxing as Emma reassured them. "It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy will be right here with you. These kind people just want to talk for a little bit." As the door clicked shut behind her daughters, a surge of overwhelming emotion rose inside Emma's chest, threatening to spill over. Taking a deep, steadying breath, she prepared herself for the difficult questions that lay ahead. Daniel stood by her side, his hands wrapped around hers, grounding her amid the turmoil. Detective Roberts then led Emma to a stark room with a table and 3 chairs. "I know this is difficult," she said gently but firmly, "but I need to ask you both about any family conflicts or significant events that occurred close to the time the girls were taken. Was there anything that might have triggered Dylan's actions?" Daniel furrowed his brow, thinking deeply before his eyes widened with the memory. Actually, yes, he said heavily. About a week before the girls disappeared, we had a family meeting in Notary's office. My mother, Dylan, our younger brother Kevin, and I were there to settle some details about the family inheritance that she had prepared. Laura, with her face etched in pain and regret, softly added, I was responsible for the inheritance distribution. I allocated Dylan only a set amount of cash and a small plot of land. He didn't receive any part of the family factory. Detective Roberts leaned forward, her interest piqued. And how did Dylan react to this news? Daniel exchanged a pained look with his mother before continuing. He was upset, silently, but you could see the anger in his eyes. I never thought his voice would trail off with such emotion. Laura reached out and gently squeezed her son's hand. We had our reasons for the decision, she explained. But looking back now, I can see how it might have pushed Dylan over the edge. Daniel's face filled with guilt and realization as he whispered, that must be why he did this. He was jealous, angry, and wanted to hurt us, to hurt me, by taking the girls. Detective Roberts made a careful note, her expression grave. This is significant information. It provides a potential motive for Dylan's actions. We'll need to review the details of that inheritance meeting and all the documents that were signed. As Emma listened in stunned silence, processing the new information, the idea that a family disagreement over money could have led to her daughter's abduction was almost too unbearable to comprehend. She looked at Daniel and Laura, seeing on their faces the deep pain and guilt of secrets long held. The ripple effects of Dylan's actions had touched every part of their family. After a long and intense round of interviews at the station, the Johnson-Thompson family finally found themselves reunited in the lobby. Freya and Sophia, exhausted yet relieved to be back with their parents, clung tightly to Emma and Daniel's hands, while Laura stood close by, her face a mixture of relief and lingering worry. Detective Roberts approached the family once more, her voice softening as she announced, We're done for now. An officer will escort you home. Kneeling beside the twins, she reached into her pocket and pulled out Freya's glasses, causing the girl's face to light up with both relief and excitement. You found them, Freya, the little girl exclaimed quickly, slipping the glasses on. I've been struggling to see properly all this time. With a warm smile, Detective Roberts explained, Actually, your mom found them for you. I only borrowed them briefly. At the mention of the glasses, Emma's breath hitched as she suddenly remembered her promise to the homeless woman. Could we make a quick stop at the KFC on Lincoln Boulevard before we go home? There's someone I need to see, she asked softly. The officer assigned to escort them nodded in understanding, recognizing the significance of her request. When they arrived at the KFC, Emma's heart leapt with relief as she spotted Maggie Miller in her usual spot. Hastily, she got out of the car and approached the woman with a warm smile, calling out, Maggie, I found them. You helped me find my girls. Maggie's weathered face broke into a wide, grateful smile, and tears welled in her eyes as she said, Oh, thank the Lord. I've been praying for you. Soon, the rest of the family joined Emma. Daniel stepped forward and extended his hand to Maggie, his voice choked with gratitude as he said, Thank you. We can never repay you for what you've done. Freya and Sophia, still shy and a bit overwhelmed, managed small waves and quiet thank yous for the woman who had played such a crucial role in their rescue. Observing the scene with deep emotion, Laura declared, We can't just leave Maggie here. You helped bring our girls back home. You deserve a home too. Emma and Daniel exchanged surprised yet approving glances as Laura continued. Maggie, would you like to come with us? We can find you a temporary place to stay until we figure out something more permanent. Overwhelmed with gratitude and emotion, Maggie's eyes darted between the family members, as if searching for any sign of insincerity, before she whispered, You do that for me? Daniel nodded gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Of course. You're now part of this story, part of our family's story. With tears streaming down her face, Maggie softly said, I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you all so much, as they helped her into the police car. Driving away from the KFC, Emma looked at her family, Daniel, the girls, Laura, and now Maggie, and felt a new sense of hope blossoming inside her. Though the road ahead would be challenging, with therapy sessions, legal proceedings, and a long process of rebuilding trust and security, in that precious moment, she was surrounded by love and kindness. "Let's go home," she said softly, her voice filled with resolve. As they drove away, Emma knew that despite the pain, betrayal, and heartache that had marred the past 6 weeks, there was hope for a brighter future. They were together, they were safe, and with every step forward, from rewatching vital security footage to uncovering long-hidden family secrets, they were moving one deliberate step at a time toward healing and rebuilding their lives as one united family.